I was thinking about this earlier. If you walked into an operating room today for like a major surgery, right, and you saw this surgeon pulling out a rusty 19th century handsaw, you'd run for the door. I mean, you wouldn't even hesitate.
Oh, absolutely. You probably call the authorities. I mean, it's visceral, isn't
It's
it?
fairly visceral.
We just inherently expect our tools, especially the critical ones that determine our survival, to match the era we live in. Anything less feels, dangerously negligent.
Right. And yet, we are currently living inside this massive society-wide paradox.
Yeah.
Every single morning, we pack our kids' lunches, put a backpack on them, and send them off into a system that was fundamentally designed over 200 years ago.
Yeah, it's wild when you put it like that.
It really is. We're standing on the precipice of this AI revolution it's evolving at an exponential, dizzying rate. But we are preparing the next generation in classrooms perfectly calibrated
Mhm.
for a world that literally no longer exists.
It's a profound disconnect. And frankly, for those of you listening, this goes way beyond being just an education problem. It's really a societal survival problem.
Right, because everything stems from how we learn.
Exactly. If we want to navigate this new era, if we want to retain our relevance and our ultimate human value, we have to totally dismantle our understanding of what learning even is. We have to look at the ground shifting beneath us and understand why the old foundation is cracking.
Which means we need to take a really hard look at that foundation. Our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct that exact system. You said we're sending kids into a system designed 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And when you actually strip down the mechanics of a modern school,
The bell's ringing.
yes, the bells ringing to signal shift changes, the rows of uniform desks, the movement of students from station to station in batches based on their manufacturing date, meaning their age. I mean, it looks suspiciously like a 19th century factory floor.
Well, that's because it essentially is one. I mean, the traditional school system wasn't some organic accident. It was a brilliant, highly successful design for the Industrial Revolution. It was heavily based on the Prussian education model.
Prussian, as in old Germany.
Right,
Right.
right. The explicit goal was to mass produce standardized cogs for factories and bureaucracies. You take these unpredictable, messy, highly individualized humans, you run them through uniform textbooks, standardized tests, and rigid pathways, and you stamp out standard, predictable executors.
So the goal wasn't to create brilliant, free-thinking innovators. It was just to create people who could show up on time, follow instructions perfectly, and, most importantly, not break the machinery.
Exactly. It prioritized compliance over creativity. And honestly, that worked wonderfully when the economy needed millions of compliant factory workers. But today, because the economy no longer needs that, this model has devolved into what the sources call the devil's bargain in modern classrooms.
Devil's bargain. That sounds pretty ominous. What exactly are we trading away?
We're trading away actual growth for a low efficiency consensus. Essentially, the system is so large and inflexible that both teachers and students have unconsciously agreed to put in like minimal effort just to keep the gears turning.
Wow, so everyone's just playing a part.
Yeah, the system pretends to teach, the students pretend to learn, and everyone gets a passing grade so nobody complains. And the statistics on how ineffective this is are absolutely brutal. Like, traditional lecture-style teaching someone just talking at you while you sit at a desk yields a 1% retention rate.
Wait, hold on. 1%? Are you saying if I sit through a 50-minute lecture, I walk away with maybe 30 seconds of actual retained knowledge?
The data supports that, yes. Active application is how the brain learns, not passive consumption. I mean, reading a textbook alone gives you about a 5% retention rate. It is a highly inefficient way to transfer knowledge.
And yet, the lecture and the textbook remain the absolute bedrock of our educational infrastructure. We just accept this because, what? Because it's easy to measure attendance and hard to measure actual capability.
Precisely. And this leads to the ultimate failure of the system's reward mechanism, which is the elite university degree. For decades, a degree from, say, an Ivy League school was mostly a signal.
Like a status symbol.
Right. It didn't necessarily mean you were a genius. It signaled to an employer that you had wealth, social class, and the stamina to conform to a rigorous set of arbitrary rules. But in the AI era, where employers are suddenly demanding 10x output, the value of that mere signal is plunging to zero.
Because nobody cares if you can conform anymore. They care what you can produce.
Exactly.
It makes me think if the Industrial Revolution replaced human muscle and traditional schools were built to train human calculators, aren't we basically training kids to be human APIs? Like we're teaching them to take a specific input, process it exactly as instructed without deviating, and deliver a standard output.
I think that's the most terrifyingly accurate way to describe it. We are churning out human APIs.
But isn't executing standardized tasks the exact thing AI does better, faster, and cheaper than any human alive? I mean, if my entire skill set is being a human API, I am competing directly against actual APIs that operate at the speed of light and don't need health insurance.
And you will lose that competition every single time. This is really where the failure of the classroom collides violently with the reality of the job market. We are entering what investor Ray Dalio calls the zeroth world.
Okay, we've heard of the first world and the third world. What is the zeroth world?
It's a looming economic reality that contradicts everything we thought we knew about capitalism. Historically, economic growth meant more jobs. But in the zeroth world, we might see massive, unprecedented GDP growth, think 5 to 10% or more annually, driven entirely by the hyper-efficiency of AI.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch. It's going to run perfectly parallel to devastating human unemployment. The pie is getting vastly bigger, but far fewer people are required to bake it, so fewer people get a slice.
That is deeply unsettling. Where does that hit first? Like, who loses their slice initially?
The first casualty is the entry-level job. It is simply evaporating. Think about it from a manager's perspective. It is infinitely easier, cheaper, and frankly less frustrating to spin up and train an AI agent than it is to mentor a 22-year-old junior employee.
Because that human needs onboarding, makes inevitable mistakes,
Mhm.
and takes 6 months just to become productive. There was an example in the sources about Shopify, right?
Yes. The Shopify example is very telling. There, before a team can get the budget to hire more human employees, they must definitively prove that they cannot achieve their goal using AI. The burden of proof has shifted completely.
That's wild. You don't hire a human to do the work. You hire a human only when the AI mathematically cannot do the work.
Right. That flips the entire hiring logic upside down.
But it also raises a terrifying question for you, the listener, especially if you have kids or you're early in your career. If the junior roles just don't exist anymore, how do you ever get the experience to become a senior employee? Where's the training ground?
That is the structural crisis of our time. And to compound that anxiety, the actual return on investment for the human skills you do have is shrinking rapidly. Historically, the half-life of a learned professional skill provided a solid 7-year return.
Meaning if you learned a new coding language or marketing strategy, it kept you valuable for 7 years.
Exactly. But today, that skill becomes entirely obsolete in just 3.6 years.
Wow. So whatever you poured your heart into learning in year 4 of college is literally obsolete by year 2 of your actual career. The old paradigm of, study for 22 years and work for 40 is just, it's completely bankrupt.
Completely bankrupt. You cannot front load your education anymore. But, to be fair to the nuance here in the sources, the same disruption is also creating massive opportunity for a specific type of person. It's ushering in the era of the one-person company.
Oh, right. Because a single entrepreneur with a compelling idea and a swarm of AI agents can now execute what previously required an entire startup team of developers, copywriters, and accountants.
Precisely. You have so much leverage now.
Which actually brings up a startling historical analogy from our sources that I want to share. So I want you to picture the horses in New York City in the year 1900. They were everywhere. They were literally the engine of the city. And if horses could think, they probably thought, we've worked alongside humans for thousands of years, pulling carts, moving goods. We are absolutely essential to this economy.
It's a great visual.
But just 13 years later, by 1913, you look at photographs of the exact same streets, and the horses are entirely gone. They've been replaced by the automobile. So the question we have to ask is, are white-collar knowledge workers the horses of the AI revolution?
It's a chilling comparison, but if your only value to your employer is routine, predictable, cognitive labor processing spreadsheets, writing generic emails, summarizing documents, then yes, you are the horse in 1900.
Okay, so if the traditional assembly line school system is churning out obsolete workers for a job market that is just vanishing, how do we stop the assembly line? How do we fix how we learn? Because it seems like the only way out is through. We have to use the very technology causing the disruption to actually fix the disruption.
Yes, we have to look at AI not just as an economic threat, but as the ultimate educational liberator. The sources actually describe AI as the WD-40 of education.
I really like that metaphor, but let's break down the mechanics of it. What exactly is the rust in this scenario?
The rest is standardization. In a traditional classroom, learning is rusted shut by rigid pacing. Like if a child doesn't understand fractions by Tuesday, it doesn't matter because on Wednesday the class moves on to decimals.
And that child is now permanently behind.
Right. They accumulate what we call learning debt, but the AI acts as WD-40 because it dissolves that rigid timeline. It completely personalizes the pacing.
So if I need to sit with fractions for a month, the AI sits with me for a month. It doesn't get frustrated. It doesn't judge me.
Exactly. It's a tireless, endlessly patient tutor. And historically, we've known how powerful this is. Educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom identified this as the two sigma problem decades ago.
2 sigma, meaning 2 standard deviations.
Right. He proved that a student who receives one-on-one personal tutoring performs 2 standard deviations better than a student in a traditional classroom. That means they outperform 98% of their peers.
But obviously, historically, we just couldn't afford to give every single child on Earth their own personal human tutor. It was economically impossible.
Until right now, AI democratizes the 2 sigma advantage. You can now give every child and every adult a personalized adaptive tutor. But, and this is a big but, this creates an existential survival crisis for the traditional teacher.
I was just going to ask about that. If my AI tutor is teaching me the quadratic equation and the history of the Roman Empire, what is the human teacher actually doing? Do they just sit at the front of the room singing Kumbaya? Like, what happens to actual physical classroom time?
Well, they don't sing Kumbaya, but emotional intelligence does become their primary job. The teacher shifts from being a lecturer, a dispenser of facts, to being an emotional guide and a facilitator of metacognition.
Metacognition, that's teaching a student how to think about their own thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. How to push through frustration, how to evaluate a problem. And as for class time, our sources suggest that 20 to 30% of it should instantly shift to peer-to-peer project-based learning, or PBL.
Okay, break that down for me. What does a PBL classroom actually look like?
Well, instead of 30 kids sitting silently at desks taking notes, you have small groups of students actively building things. They are given real-world, messy problems that don't have standard answers at the back of the book.
Like what?
Like, they might be tasked with designing a hypothetical water filtration system for their local town. They have to debate, collaborate, fail, and iterate.
So they're learning how to work with humans while the AI helps them with the technical details.
Exactly. And structurally, this changes the whole landscape of where we learn. We're already seeing the rise of hybrid homeschooling, which obviously gained huge traction during the pandemic, and local learning pods where parents pool resources.
That makes a lot of sense for kids. What about adults?
For you, as an adult, higher education has to pivot to a lifelong subscription model. Instead of paying a massive lump sum for a 4-year degree that, as we discussed, expires in 3.6 years, you'll have a continuous monthly subscription to an institution that helps you reskill constantly throughout your life.
A lifelong subscription to learning makes so much sense. It treats education like fitness. You don't go to the gym for 4 years and say, well, I'm done for life. I'm fit forever. You have to maintain it.
Right. It's a continuous practice.
So we understand how the system is changing. But let's get deeply practical for the listener. If the half-life of a skill is vanishing, what exactly should you be focusing on right now to stay relevant?
This requires a major shift in how we view technical skills. Like a year ago, the golden advice was learn prompt engineering. Fast forward to today, and AI is actually better at prompting itself than we are.
Yeah, that happened fast.
So fast. The critical shift you need to make now is moving from prompting to discernment.
Discernment. Tell me why that's the premium skill now.
Because AI makes generating content incredibly cheap. The sheer volume of information code, essays, legal briefs, marketing copy, it's exploding. But evaluating that content, knowing if it's actually accurate, ethical, or strategically useful is incredibly expensive.
Because AI hallucinates.
Exactly. It will confidently produce incredibly plausible sounding lies. Your real skill is having enough deep foundational knowledge in your field to judge the gray areas of what the AI produces.
So you can't just be an empty vessel acting as a middleman,
Yeah.
just handing tasks to AI and blindly passing them to your boss.
Yeah.
You have to actually know enough about the subject to know when the AI is lying to you.
Precisely. You are the quality control. You also need a STEM-based problem-solving mindset. Not necessarily the math itself, but the scientific method. The ability to break down a novel problem, establish a logical framework, and iterate through your failures.
Hearing you describe this, It sounds like I'm no longer the one playing the instrument. Like, I don't need to perfectly write every line of Python code or perfectly draft the legal contract. I'm not the violinist anymore. I'm standing on the podium waving the baton. I'm the conductor.
That is the absolute perfect way to look at it. The sources called this the orchestra of agents. You manage 25 different AI agents, all playing different instruments, and your job is to create a cohesive symphony. You manage the workflow, the strategy, and the vision.
And that vision piece aligns with what McKinsey defines as the new triad of human skills that AI cannot touch. The first one they mention is aspiration. I mean, an AI isn't going to wake up one morning, look at the stars, and decide it wants to build a rocket to Mars. It has no desires. A human has to set that massive, audacious goal.
Right, AI is a brilliant navigator, but you have to pick the destination.
Exactly. And the second one is human judgment, navigating ethics, ambiguity, and complex human dynamics. The AI might tell you the most mathematically efficient way to fire 500 people, but human judgment tells you how to handle the emotional and community fallout of that decision.
Which is something an algorithm can never truly grasp.
Right. And the third is true creativity, which is fascinating because AI generates art and music all day long. But the sources say AI is basically a predictive probability engine, right? It just guesses the next most likely word or pixel based on historical data. True human creativity is orthogonal.
I really want to highlight that word orthogonal. AI optimizes for the expected. If you ask it to write a pop song, it analyzes a million pop songs and gives you the most average, predictable chord progression possible.
It's the mean of all data.
Exactly. Human creativity, on the other hand, optimizes for the unexpected. A human writes a bizarre out-of-key bridge because they just went through a strange breakup and they're channeling a feeling that literally doesn't exist in a database. That orthogonal leap, that break from probability, is strictly human.
But practically speaking, when you put all this together, the aspiration, the judgment, the orchestrating of agents, it sounds like the real gap in the market isn't a skills gap anymore. It's a guts gap.
A guts gap, I like that.
Yeah, like if you and I can both code an entire e-commerce website in 10 minutes using an AI agent, technical execution is totally commoditized. Doesn't the real competitive advantage just come down to chutzpah, the sheer drive, agency, and courage to actually go out and initiate the project?
Absolutely. When execution becomes a commodity, human agency becomes the premium asset. The market will be dominated by high-agency individuals who can self-direct, take risks, and initiate action without waiting for a syllabus or a manager to tell them what to do.
Which naturally zooms us out to what I think is the most profound existential question of this entire deep dive. If AI can calculate, generate, and execute tasks vastly better and faster than we can, what is our ultimate value as human beings? Are we just biological batteries here to push the go button on the machine?
Not at all. And this is where we have to fiercely protect what the sources call our cognitive sovereignty. You see, AI optimizes for zero errors, maximum efficiency, and total predictability. It wants to remove all friction.
But humans need friction.
We do. Human growth doesn't happen in a frictionless vacuum. It requires chaos, resistance, and difficulty. To maintain our sovereignty, our very humanity, we have to actively build what are called the four muscles of imperfection.
Muscles of imperfection. Okay, if AI is pushing us toward frictionless perfection, how do we push back? What's the first muscle?
The first is defending our right to make mistakes. AI is designed by engineers to avoid errors at all costs. But humans actually learn through foolish, inefficient, messy errors in the real physical world. Think about a toddler learning to walk. They have to fall down.
Yeah, if we outsource all our decision-making to AI to avoid ever making a mistake, we stop learning how to recover from failure. We have to protect spaces where making mistakes is actively encouraged. That makes total sense. If you never fall, you never learn how to get back up. But what about the speed of it all? Because I feel like if an AI can write a comprehensive research paper in 3 seconds, I lose my patience for spending 3 days reading a book. My brain is getting lazy because I want the instant output.
That impatience is exactly what the sources warn about. They call the antidote active slowness, which is the second muscle.
Active slowness.
Yeah. AI operates in milliseconds, and it trains us to expect a constant dopamine hit of instant feedback. Active slowness is the conscious ability to delay gratification. It's forcing yourself to push through a difficult, boring project without the real-time feedback loop of a machine.
Which is brutally hard when your phone is constantly vibrating, offering an easier distraction.
It is the capacity to sustain deep attention over the long term, which is becoming increasingly incredibly rare.
I also feel this overwhelm just with the sheer amount of information. I feel like I'm supposed to know everything because I have access to everything.
And that leads perfectly to the third muscle structural ignorance. This sounds counterintuitive for a deep dive on learning, but in an era where you can instantly search for any fact, there is profound power in daring to not know everything.
Deliberately curating your ignorance.
Exactly. You ignore the noise so you can preserve your focus to deeply chew on one really important, complex problem for a decade, rather than knowing a shallow AI-generated summary of literally everything.
I love that. Curating your ignorance to protect your attention. And the fourth muscle.
The fourth is data asymmetry. This is about protecting our privacy from total AI surveillance. It's a refusal to become totally quantified, categorized, and predictable to the algorithm.
Because if we are perfectly predictable to the machine can manipulate us.
Right, and we lose our agency. We have to retain a level of mystery and unpredictability.
So, synthesizing all of this, our value isn't in executing the perfect, optimal, fastest answer anymore. The machine has won that race. Our value is in the messy, inefficient, beautiful human process of choosing what actually matters.
Yes.
It's making mistakes along the way, learning from them, and relying on our relational intelligence, our empathy, our community, our connection to other humans to pull each other through the chaos that the machine just can't understand.
Exactly right. We are actively transitioning from an economy that valued us for our robotic outputs to an economy that will value us for our distinct humanity.
So to recap the journey we've been on today, if you want to thrive in this new reality, you must completely abandon the industrial era Prussian mindset. The era of being a perfect, compliant rule executor is dead and gone.
Yeah.
You need to embrace AI not as a threat, but as a lifelong, personalized learning tool that frees you from the assembly line.
You have to become the visionary conductor of technology.
Right, relying on your unique human judgment and your ambition. And above all, your willingness to learn, unlearn, and relearn is your greatest asset.
Adaptability is really the only true job security you have left.
Which brings us to one final lingering idea to mull over. We talked in the beginning about the absurdity of sending kids into a modern world equipped with a 19th century handsaw. We are now facing a tool in AI that is nearly omnipotent in its logic. AI can calculate the absolute optimal path for any task you give it, but an AI can never be punished.
No.
And it can never truly be rewarded by the physical world. It cannot feel the sting of a humiliating failure, the warmth of human connection, or the deep soul-level joy of a hard-won victory. Therefore, the ultimate human superpower in the AI era isn't intelligence. The machine is already more intelligent. The ultimate human superpower is consequence. The future belongs to those of you who are willing to look at a highly unpredictable, chaotic world, make a bold orthogonal choice and say, I will bear the weight of what happens next.